Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, and loving life. I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me if you would. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. Every little bit is appreciated and certainly needed at this point. So please feel free. And then, of course, we've got the StreamYard link down there for anybody that wants to join the panel. We're going to talk about revocable and irrevocable trusts tonight, as it relates to the public service and the public trust, not so much as to the public servants, but your private capacity in those and how to correct that. And that is through a revocable or irrevocable trust of your own. And again, like I've told people before, I don't know who you're listening to where you hand that trust over to the public officials, but you're not supposed to do that. That's what breaches the trust. If you know about trust law, then you shouldn't be handing the trust over to anybody. That's a private placement in your own holding, and the only thing you offer is a certificate of trust. Then, if you happen to have a violation of code, law, policy, or anything, then it's trust versus trust. But when you transfer that paperwork to the public record, that's a commingling, and it breaches the trust, and the trust is no longer valid. So again, the only thing you offer up is a certificate of trust, which is a proof that a trust exists in expression of a certificate. That's an express trust. It's all you have to do by law is express it. But when people listen to these gurus telling you, well, you got to develop this trust and file it with the court. No, you don't. That's putting your private trust in a probate situation, just like the SS5 handing the trust over to the state for administration. That's a breach of trust. It's bringing public officials into administrate your private affairs. And if you're competent, you don't do that. So let's get into it. We've got revocable trust from the Iowa State Bar Association. And it says, a revocable trust, sometimes called a living or inter vivos trust, is an agreement made by the trustor, also called the grantor, and the trustee. The trustor gives the trustor's property to the trustee. The trustor is the living man, and he hands the property over to the fictional estate, which is known as the trustee, and he can assign himself as trustee, or he can assign somebody else as trustee. The trustee manages the property in accordance with the instructions of the trustor as they appear in the trust agreement. So again, like I said, if you're going to hand this stuff over to the public courts and file it there, you're giving them the property as the trust and assigning them as a trustee, and that's not what you're supposed to do. If it's a private trust, you establish a private trustee. This is how you protect the trust. By putting it in the public, you yourself breach it. The revocable trust may be amended or revoked at any time during the trustor's lifetime, so long as the trustor is competent, or by the trustor's will, if the trust instrument authorized revocation in that manner. Under Iowa law, a trust created during the grantor's lifetime is revocable unless the instrument expressly states that it is irrevocable. So the only irrevocable trust is one that states it expressly that it is irrevocable, meaning that anything other than an irrevocable trust is a revocable trust. If the trust is not revoked, it becomes irrevocable at the trustor's death. Trustees. You can be the trustee of your own trust. If you are the trustee of your trust, You continue to manage your own financial affairs. You continue to manage your own financial affairs. This is why when you go into those courts under administration of a probated estate, they do not recognize you as being able to settle it because they are claiming that you are the surety by presumption. And that presumption is that you're a surety of the public trust if you haven't designed your own. The only difference is that from a legal standpoint, the assets are owned by your trust. This is why it's important to establish a trust and provide the certificate of trust so that you can qualify that anytime they come after you for a violation of the law and try to get at your trust, that trust will show the property of the trust that they can come and get if you are found in violation upon conviction. But they have to bring their trust against yours and prove that you did in fact violate a law and not a public trust policy. If you are not the trustee, you may choose to name as trustee an individual with investment expertise or a bank. Following the instructions in the trust agreement, the trustee will manage your property, handle the collection of income from the assets, and pay expenses from the trust and not from your pocket. In addition, if instructed, the trustee will also make investment decisions. If you name a professional trustee, you should inquire about the fee for administrating the trust. Let me make a mention of this. Laura says YouTube won't let me thumb up. Says resource has been exhausted. Check quota. Robert, you came up and somehow we missed you. You connected and all of a sudden you went back. But anyway, as regards to Laura's comment, I was just on Barry Cooper's channel where he was talking about the issue of racism in America, and he went from 100 viewers down to 3 in a matter of seconds, and then all of a sudden it wouldn't let people like. I went through and liked it, and then when I got off, he started a new stream. He's on his new stream now, but I checked my channel, and it wouldn't let me have access to my channel several times, and then finally it let me through. So it might be just a matter of hitting that like button until it does accept it. I don't know what's going on, but they're evidently having a problem with YouTube. So, and I don't know if it's a matter of trying to shadow ban people or not. I don't care. All I know is I need to get this information out. Do what you can on your end, and like I said, if it doesn't work the first time, try it again. If you name a professional trustee, you should inquire about the fee for administering the trust. There are several reasons people choose to set up revocable trust. One reason people consider a revocable trust is to obtain privacy in their financial affairs. So it's telling us that by presumption, again, if we read between the lines, it's telling us that a revocable trust obtains privacy, whereas the irrevocable trust does not. A living trust is a private arrangement between the trustor, the trustee, and the beneficiaries. No one else, not the public. Again, if you're handing over your trust documents to the public, you're making a mistake. Upon your death, unlike your will, a living trust agreement is not usually filed with the court and does not become part of the public record. How many times are you going to listen to these damn gurus that tell you to file it with the courts? Upon your death, I don't know why my cursor is having problems again, but upon your death, it says, get that comment in there. It says, upon your death, unlike your will, a living trust agreement is not usually filed with the court and does not become a part of the public record. So you file a certificate of trust and a living will, showing them that your living will is a trust statement itself, and the certificate of trust is evidence that the trust does exist pursuant to your living will and no one else's. That's the distinction. It's expressing your living will, the living word of the living God here now. And that is not the God, but a living God in the image and likeness of the God that gave us the word. And that's what we're talking about, rightly dividing the truth of each and every word. How you doing tonight, Robert?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. I saw your comment there about body salt, cell salt.
I'm just now getting into that, and it seems like it's a good line of defense anyway. And
Well, yeah, that's the basic premise of the biosulfates and stuff like that, the baking sodas and everything, apple cider vinegar. They're going to help keep you alchemically balanced by providing the proper nutrients, which are all actually anode cathode type nutrients that allow an electrolysis process in your body so it can transfer those nutrients in electrolytic stasis.
it's a trip how it all works. You
Yep.
know, the zodiac and the whole alignment, and it's pretty interesting.
All right. So back onto the topic. It says incapacity. Another reason people establish a revocable trust is to provide for continued management of their assets upon incapacity. If you have established a trust and transferred your assets into the trust, the trustee or successor trustee, if you were the original trustee, can continue to manage your financial affairs should you become incapacitated. And this is information that's going to be held on the certificate of trust. It's going to name whoever you named as the trustee and successor trustee. If you're the trustee and you end up incapacitated, you have to have a successor trustee. And you're going to have to put that kind of information on the certificate of trust, but you don't expose the elements of the trust, such as the property and this and that.
What's the other name for the certificate? A declaration or something like?
Right,
There's another name.
right, a declaration of trust,
Okay.
and it's a handwritten statement. Well, your will be a handwritten statement or a typed up one, but it'd be a private statement, a private declaration, and then you're going to certify that statement with a certificate of trust naming particulars. So you're going to have a living will and a set of particulars as a certificate of trust that's going to name a successor trustee if you become incapacitated, but it's still not going to let out into the public what the trust itself is. It's not going to name the property or anything. It's going to protect the property so they can't actually like find it. Okay. So it goes on and it says this eliminates the need for a court to appoint a conservator to handle your finances.
Hmm.
Probate. Many people are interested in establishing a revocable trust because it will allow their estate to avoid probate. It will allow their estate to avoid probate. In that, this is what tells me that somewhere along the line, somebody did not put forth a certificate of trust and a living will to let them know that this is not a probated estate, that there is, in fact, a living being that is supervising his own finances and he's self-governing. That's as
Yeah,
simple as
they
it
should.
gets.
I agree. They should never know anything. It should just continue. If I die, it should continue on. Like courts aren't even involved. Well, they shouldn't be.
Correct. As soon as you start filling out that government instrumentality known as commercial paperwork, you have already stepped into a public trust that you don't know what's going on. That's
Yeah, they
why,
hire a fiduciary.
yep, that's why I
Yep.
urge everybody to start learning this stuff because this is the crux of our problem. We have no trust. We don't even understand what trust is. And it's not until then that we're going to be able to enforce the law that they're using against us, which is public service at the very lowest level, which is still a public trust, but still not a valid trust as it relates to our private being.
It seems
Pure and
almost
simple.
everything is in trust. Everything.
Well, that's
At
what
one
I
form or another.
well, that's what I said. When they merged common law with equity, what they did was merge trust law with contract. So now every contract you see essentially is evidence of a trust. Know the terms of trust language, and you should be able to express it by knowing who the principal is, who the surety is, and the fact that you're the beneficiary. It goes on to say if you have transferred all of your assets to a living trust, there will be no need to probate your estate at death. But if you have not transferred all your property into the trust, or you have acquired additional property that was not transferred into it, probate proceedings will be necessary because that property that's not listed in the trust will be assumed to have no known owner, and therefore it's abandoned property that the state now has a duty to take care of, whether that be to hold in abeyance until a proper claimant comes forth and makes a claim of inheritance of that property, or to have it destroyed or put to use in public venues. One or the other. It's their duty of abandoned property. And that's basically what we're talking about when mom and dad don't step up and provide a living will with a certificate of trust for that baby that's being born under the labor pains of God's good work and expressing that trust first and foremost, then that faulty, um, fatal public trust will take over. If there is a probate of your estate, an inventory of your assets must be filed with the court, and the value of your trust should be included. For persons with real property, including condominiums in two or more states, it is often advisable. Why they put that in there, I have no idea. It is often advisable to transfer title to the real property in the state that it is not the state of your permanent residence, not the state of your permanent residence, and this is lowercase. So it has nothing to do with the state as the state is defined, a political subdivision, but the actual state, the material fact existence of its state of being is what we're talking about here. This is the same thing we're talking about with your state of being. You are
Mental
not
awareness.
exactly the compos mentis of being aware of your state of being in every breath you take.
Last time I was in court, there was two cases, and I wasn't really paying attention, but I did key in. The judge ordered one of the cases to get an evaluation, and I was like, "Wow, this is kind of interesting," because it was just weird the way it was worded, and yeah, the well-being,
Yeah, and
his
that's
mental
why
capacities, what he said, exactly what you said.
yeah, and that's why they ask you for your income in these courts and stuff. They want to distract from your actual capacity of being and keep you concentrated on that material existence in this value system as if though that's what they want you to be competent of. I'm not competent of working in this job system anymore. I am not a public official and I cannot be licensed. There are certain facts that I know that prove an inconsistency so far off base that it makes it impossible for me to do so. Literally.
This alone is its own job, like especially with children. I mean, it's its own job in itself that we're supposed to. You want to teach your kid French? Send him to France. You know, we have
Exactly.
the means to do it, and it's a job in itself, a fulfilling one that we haven't had the chance to do.
Yep.
So hopefully, with your teachings and all this, we will get some. I don't know, another avenue to go down.
Yep. And Iman, yes, that is the conservator is the one that probates the trust. Jack is coming with us tonight. I'm loving these conversations. I've been intending to catch one of your streams for a while. Thank you. I hope you do catch more, brother. Like I said, we've had our problems in the past, but it's a matter of learning and education. I hope you're going to learn. And Goldsmith says every contract is an executory contract, which equals two trusts. Each man must come forth in contract, knowing that he has his own trust that is going to go up against the other man's trust. This is why you cannot commingle private with public. If you're going to be in contract with another public contractor, you have to let them know that you are in your private capacity, and if there are inconsistencies of taking upon a public office, you cannot fulfill that. You're not a public official. So if they want to contract with you, it has to be in your private capacity, and they have to allow for that. That means you cannot enter your private information into a public trust. Period. So as we continue on, it says, like I said, it is often advisable to transfer the title to real property in the state that it is not the state of your permanent residence into a revocable trust in order to avoid ancillary probate. In other words, exterior probate proceedings in that state. While establishing a living trust may avoid the need for the probate of your estate, it does not eliminate all costs associated with probate. You may still need to have someone prepare tax returns. Having a revocable trust does not eliminate the necessity to file an Iowa inheritance tax return for a federal estate tax return if required. Again, if you're private and you're not performing the official acts of a public entity under that rules made for government, then it is not necessary to file an Iowa inheritance tax return because, again, that's a political subdivision under the Constitution, which you are not subject to. That is a contract for the public officials to abide by to make sure they maintain your rights under the Articles 1 through 10 and the Amendments 11 through 27. Or pay the tax.
What's your take on coming in as a foreign, like a foreign grantor's trust?
That's what it is. I'm a foreign grantor of a trust. I am not domestic to the United States. I am foreign to the United States as a foreign grantor of the land under God, not under the United States. There may also be costs associated with transferring property to trust beneficiaries. In the event that an estate is opened, probate fees, including executor and legal fees, are based on the value of the gross estate. This is why they ask you for your income. The gross estate includes the value of your probate assets and may also include the value of the assets in a revocable trust. The gross estate includes the value of your probate assets. So even if it's in probate, the value comes from you. Like I said, your estate starts with your very thoughts. Everything you put into that public system is part of your estate. All of those data elements that they are keeping track of in those records is part of your estate. and they have a value, and may also include the value of the assets in a revocable trust. Wills. Even with a revocable trust, it is still necessary to have a will. If you do not transfer all your assets into the trust, you should have a will that would pour over any assets of your estate to the trust. If you do not transfer all of your assets into the trust, you should have a will that would pour over. Does that sound like your will is the well that welleth over? Does that sound like if your property is an asset of the estate to your trust and you're going to pass that on to the beneficiaries, then your cup welleth over upon your death through your will? That's the way I take it.
It's a trip. Yeah.
A,
Yeah, you're right.
a revocable trust can be an integral part of your estate plan. You should contact an attorney experienced in estate planning to see if a revocable trust is right for you. Now, while I don't agree often with attorneys, it is the attorneys that have a lot of information, and it's wise to consult with them, but you don't hire them.
Yeah,
You
use
don't,
them in a different capacity.
exactly. You use them in an informational and learning and educational capacity. Now, the next one is from Investopedia, and it says revocable trust. A revocable trust, a trust whose provisions can be altered or canceled by the grantor. By the grantor. No one else. The trustee can't change them. The beneficiary cannot change them. The beneficiary can only change them if he needs to upon probate to settle any controversies. And those are the only things that would be changed, would be the inconsistencies or controversies. A revocable trust is part of estate planning that manages the assets of the grantor as the owner ages. The trust can be amended or revoked as the grantor desires, and the property it holds is included in estate taxes. Again, if you're not investing the property, come on. If you're not investing the property to make money, then it's not taxable. What is an estate tax? The estate tax is a federal tax levied on the transfer of estate of a person who dies. So the tax is merely compensation for them to probate the estate. An estate tax applies when the value exceeds an exclusion limit set by law. Only the amount that exceeds that minimum threshold is subject to tax. So here we have an inconsistency in how to evaluate or place a value on a trust, because they want you to denominate that value according to the monetary system in play. You see a conversion in language there? They require to use legalese terms and conditions for a probate situation. If you're doing a private trust and it's not using legalese terms and it's using trust terms, you should be able to avoid any contracts. And again, that's the reason for a private estate trust, is so you can expose yourself as a beneficiary and not as a contractor.
And that's really important, knowing your position, because your position changes all through this damn thing. You know, at one
Absolutely.
meeting you're the beneficiary, and next year the trustee, and yeah, it's always changing.
Yep.
for sure.
And that's what we see. We can be the grantor, grantee, trustor, trustee, beneficiary, and benefactor. All of them. We can fulfill all of those positions as one being.
Hmm.
So it's a matter of knowing how that trust works and knowing how to work it yourself. The trust can be amended or revoked as the grantor desires and the property it holds is included in estate taxes. And depending on trust directions, a trustee might be assigned to manage the assets or property within the trust. The trustee is also charged with distributing the assets to the beneficiaries. This is also obligated. Charge can be interchangeable with obligated. That is what a charge is. When they say they're going to charge you, they're saying they're placing an obligation. So what they did when they went to the store and I used that bank card and they issued me a receipt saying when I used the card that said Keith Little in all uppercase as a MasterCard or Visa card, even though it says debit on it, it's supposed to be treated as credit, but they still issue it as debit. And instead of putting the debit in the name of Keith Little, they put debit in the name of the United States. And therefore the charge went to the United States. Oops. With distributing the assets to the beneficiary, the trust remains private and becomes irrevocable upon the grantor's death. A revocable trust becomes irrevocable upon the grantor's death. The money or property held by the trustee for the benefit of someone else is called the principal of the trust. So it's not who is the principal, it is what is the principal. The
And most
value.
people, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say most people with in a trust situation. I'll use myself for example. Our family kept the trust as a business. Everything, even though my grandfather passed away, everything is still, as you said, the principal is still being reinvested and it continues on. And then you have the sprinkling over the grandchildren and all that. So I've noticed a lot of people when they are in a situation like this, they tend to want to liquidate it, and they want that instant gratification, that instant, and they ruin the whole thing. But
Yep.
it, yeah,
Yeah. And so what we have here is a situation where you have, and who was it asked? Universal Dialogue says, so we need to show the living will and the certificate of trust to validate our trust existence. Yes. Is that the same document needed when opening a trust account? If you're going to open a trust account with the bank, yes, you have to give them a living. You have to show them the living will. Give them a copy of the living will and a copy of the certificate of trust, and you place that on deposit. Again, this is just my opinion. This is what I'm researching and the way it's explained. There are 3 documents. So you have a living will, a certificate of trust, and a birth certificate. Now, the birth certificate is going to cover the money part that we're talking about, the amount, the what, the principal. So the birth certificate acts as the principal. The bond is what acts as the principal. See, and it's the people, the officials of the community that are bonded, and so they are considered the principal, even though the bond is actually the money part of the principal, and that surety bond is guaranteeing that they are going to complete a contract, and the contractors that they're working with are going to get paid the money, the principal.
that we
So
don't get harm done upon us because we're
correct,
the only ones that can endorse that bond.
exactly. We are the
We're the only
only
ones that can
ones.
give value to it. So it's basically an insurance policy for us.
Absolutely, it's a letter of credit, is the way I explained it yesterday.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah,
And greetings, Iman. How you doing tonight, sister?
All is well.
Good. Glad you joined us. So as we go on, it says the value of the principal can change due to the trustee's expenses or the investment's appreciation or depreciation in financial markets. The collective assets comprise the trust fund. So it's the assets, like I've explained before, that fund a trust. And it's the value of the assets that are converted to a monetary value by an assessment that create a principal amount, which is considered the trust fund. The person or people benefiting from the trust are the beneficiaries. Notice it says here, the persons or people. Very important determination here,
What
folks.
is the separation there? What
Like
is
I
that?
like I said, this corporate entity can only make, like today's situation with the police where they come over and said that I've been trespassed. No, you're trying to trespass a person. And you even asked for a social security number. When you asked for that social security number, I told you I can't give that out because I've already given the government an official statement of separation, letting them know I know the thing about government records and their responsibility and the fact that they have to have integrity, and I cannot give out the social security number anymore because I'm not qualified to place a liability on the public record. And that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to take my name and some so-called birth date, and though I gave them a given name and a surname and told them I was born around August 20th, I gave them fair warning. If you put that down as a first and last name and a birth date, that would be you lying, because I never gave you that information. My English is concise. I told you it's a given name and a surname, and it is not a birth date. Because when I do an investigation on the record and we find out the birth date itself is about 17 days after the day I was born, you'll find out your mistake and that you, in fact, don't even know the law because you don't even understand English.
We better get a copy of that bond out.
Oh,
so
I
can endorse it.
I got 3 copies of my own.
Yeah, but I'm talking about their bonds, which
Oh
they
yeah,
have to have one.
oh yeah, I'm talking to the mayor and I'm going to get that surety bond. I'm going to get that
Yep.
information.
See, I asked the a clerk at the courthouse. I said I'd like a copy. Listen, this is the first time I ever asked it, and I just heard it from maybe you. And so I asked for a copy of it, and her attitude changed. Like professional, everything was dotted and crossed. And what else can I do for you? So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these people in the upper positions understand exactly what's going on, and that's why I think I got the agreement of the mayor this last week when I spoke to him, because he understood and was completely knowing of the terms I was using, and he said, "Oh yeah, yes, yes, yes," and he's the one that turned around and told me, "Well, your next step would be to go to the attorney, and if that doesn't work, then you go to the state's attorney general." And that's what my research pointed out. So I think he knows what he's doing.
So it was a good meeting.
Oh yeah, excellent meeting.
Good. How was the meeting with the DA?
The DA sucked. The DA
Really?
sucked. Yeah, I don't. I didn't get to meet with the DA, but I met with up the line, the gal at the counter, and then she called someone out, and somebody else came out, and then the assistant DA come out. And he only listened to a few things of what I was telling him. And he said, "Well, I've heard plenty from you." And I piped up right away. I said, "Oh, no, you haven't. I am just now starting. You will see me at every city council meeting and county commission meeting I can make. You have only begun to hear from me." And then he turned around, and when I told him about the reporting felonies, he's, "Oh, we don't follow federal rules." Again, the fuck you don't. Congress makes rules for the government, and that trickles all the way down. You don't get your rules from a municipal code. You get it from the Congress, and they get it from the International Postal Union. So we're going to go get that. We're going to go get that bond. Go ahead, sister.
So basically, brother, in some instances, some of them know the difference between person as opposed to people, and even in some of their writing, it will show a difference. They know when to utilize person and they know when to utilize the word people within their source of information.
Correct. They listen. When that judge looked at me years back and said, do you understand English?" And I stood there. That was a confrontational question for me because I believed yes I did, and that's what I did. I stood there and said yes, and lo and behold, come to find out, I don't understand English, but I'm comprehending it much better today. How you doing, brother Goldsmith? Comprehending it much better today. How you doing, brother Goldsmith?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing today?
Good, good. You got a little lag on there, and you got another system on in the background. I don't know if you came up on the StreamYard. You got to shut your volume off on YouTube. You got another system on in the background. I don't know if you came up on the StreamYard. You got to shut your volume off on YouTube. Okay. Go ahead and unmute and try that again. See if we still got the reverb. No, you got to unmute on StreamYard.
How's that? Is that better?
I think so.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Great. Great. How you doing tonight, brother? We are good. Glad to see you. I think you came up once before very briefly, didn't you? Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, this is my second time joining you guys.
Well, I appreciate the support, and I've been
We
paying
try to
attention.
fix this lag.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. I was just gonna say maybe go out and come back in. Yeah, I've been watching his comments in the chat. He seems to know what's going on in a basic sense. So, always glad to have you folks up here. I need all of your input, so don't be shy on saying anything. And we'll get back into this while we're waiting for him to come back up. Says the person or people benefiting from the trust are the beneficiaries. Because a revocable trust holds the assets and it doesn't die. Okay? The trust does not die. The trust avoids probate, which is the legal process of distributing assets of a will. And this is what the courts are doing, is taking upon the assets of an estate because there's no living will. So they automatically assume the ownership of the property is in the estate because it's considered abandoned. Nobody's got a valid claim on it. And then you come up and, goodness gracious, like a traffic citation, you're using property that is in the name of the state. It's not considered abandoned property, but you having that agreement with the state are considered in a surety position because you're the one holding the license and the state is the one that granted the certificate of title as if though they granted you something. See, that's an assignment. Look at that certificate of title. That's an assignment. And they assigned you as a surety trustee. Pure and simple. So let's get on with it. The grantor often acts as the trustee of a revocable trust. This is quite unlike an irrevocable trust. The trusts have been the centerpieces of most estate plans for decades. See, this is very important to pay attention to. The grantor often acts as the trustee of a revocable trust. Acts. Your actions will speak louder than words. They're going to assume that you are acting as a trustee of some sort of trust, but in their eyes, it's an irrevocable trust or some other public trust for them to probate because you haven't stated a living will. And that's what probate stands for. It means to prove a will. Oops. Come on back up, brother. I don't know if you got bad signal or something, but come on back up. I'm here. I'm here. Fast fact. All trusts are either revocable or irrevocable. That's why I said earlier when it says it's a revocable trust, it's considered a revocable trust unless it expressly clarifies that it's an irrevocable trust. So any other trust that is, or any trust that is not expressed as an irrevocable trust is presumed to be a revocable trust. Same thing with a contract. Same kind of setup. Advantages and disadvantages of a revocable trust. There are several advantages of establishing a revocable trust. If the grantor experiences health concerns through the aging process, a revocable trust allows a grantor's chosen manager to take control of the principal. So if you're taking control of the principal, you're taking control of the obligation. You are now in charge. I hope that concise English helps put those terms together for you. They're all the same. They're synonymous. Principal is synonymous with obligation. Obligation is synonymous with charge. If the grantor owns real estate outside of the state of the grantor's domicile and the real estate is included in the trust, the ancillary probate of the real estate is avoided. Not evaded, avoided. It is void. It is voided already, telling you that the public is void of any action against it. If a beneficiary is not of legal age and cannot hold property, the minor's assets are held in the trust rather than having the court appoint a guardian. This is why
Again,
I
that
say
all has to be in your what do we call it? Declaration, correct? All these things.
no, you hold these in your trust. The declaration is just a statement of your living will, and then you have a certificate of trust to go along with it to express. Matter of fact, let me see if I can get mine out here real quick. The certificate of trust, well, let's just pull it up online. Let's just pull it up online.
Oh yeah, it's on your website, huh?
Okay, wrong one. Okay. This is a simple form in Iowa that you can use according to the Iowa code, and it's just, you can use this as an outline to draw up your own, or you can just use this one. It has all the qualifications you need. And it says certification of trust for Keith Orland Little FBU Trust and Estate. Pursuant to Iowa Trust Code 633A-A.4604, this certificate of trust is signed by all the currently acting trustees of the Keith Orland Little FBU Trust and Estate, who declare as follows. The grantors are Keith Orland stop Little stop. The trust is revocable by the grantors acting jointly and not separately. The trustees of the trust are Keith Orland Little and successor trustee Joyce, and I'm not going to give you her information, just her first name, and I call her Choice. I renamed her Choice. She is my choice. Title to assets held in the trust shall be titled as pursuant to each piece of property's enumeration. They don't get a name. They get a number. The
So
name
this
of
is
the
basically just a notification that there is one in existence.
correct.
The rest of it is another business. Gotcha.
Correct. And you're going to have the signing down here by myself and my companion as trustees, and then the date. And you're going to take it before a notary and have them sign it. The thing about the notary identification, in my situation, it's going to need another document of a handwritten statement declaring my identification with 3 witnesses. That fulfills identification requirements. And if you provide a public identification, guess what? That certifier, that notary certifies the public entity and not the trustees. See, those identifications are going to have a legal name on it. Okay? This is not a legal document. This is a certification of trust for, and you get to express yourself in the proper legal capacities, which is private. I'm not a legal representative. Even though the certification of trust may present some legal information, it's to clarify the difference between public and private, political grammar and concise English, legalese and concise English.
So that notary would bring you back into the public, you're saying?
Correct.
If you had it notarized.
If you present them with a state ID. I urge people to understand that state ID is a classification saying you are a public servant. In every case. ID, identification. An individual's name and number identify a record. It never identifies you. And if it's going to relate to that record will show that you signed an SS5 and handed that estate over to be administrated by the state. And that presumption is that they authorized you as a trustee of the state to handle those such contracts. And no one ever taught you how to qualify your signature as a benefactor, beneficiary. Hey, I'm not part of the contract, but I'm willing to forego the inconsistencies as long as all the parties in the contract recognize myself as ancillary to the contract, external as a beneficiary known to be the true owner in equity. I come with clean hands. If you want equity, you must first bring equity. You have to learn equity is the trust law. And when they merged equity with common law, they merged trust law with contract law. Now you have to learn both contract law and trust law in order to distinguish the differences so you can put your data elements in their government instrumentalities and not have them be held against you by presumption. And that's merely rebutting the presumptions in the instruments that they hand you, because they do have presumptions. What's your address? I don't have an address. I have a location. The address needs to be redressed. So let's get back into it. The next one, it says, what is an estate? An estate is everything comprising the net worth of an individual, including all land and real estate, possessions, financial securities, cash, and other assets that the individual owns or has a controlling interest in. Okay, so we have a net worth and we have a controlling interest. The beneficiary is the one that controls the settlement. Beneficiary deems to be the true owner. So the only thing that the public officials in their official capacity control is not the trust, but the contracts. The trust regulates them to be able to perform those contracts, and they are already assigned as trustees. That's a contract. And that position in the trust tells them they're not supposed to violate the beneficiary. If they do, and it's done by contract, it's both breach of contract and breach of trust.
Mm-hmm.
We have a controlling interest. Like I said in previous videos, the real party in interest. I am one of the people. My real party in interest is the fact that I am the grantor of all data elements you ever received in that record. Records maintained on individuals. Had I known the term individual, which was undisclosed to me at the time as an employee of the federal government, I'd have never signed up. Understanding estates. The word estate is colloquially used to refer to all the land and improvements on a vast property, often some farm or homestead or the historic home of a prominent family. However, in the financial and legal sense of the term, an estate refers to everything
Right.
of value that an individual owns. Real estate, art collections, antique items, investments, insurance, and any other assets or entitlements, and is also used as an overarching way to refer to a person's net worth. Legally, a person's estate refers to an individual's total assets minus any liabilities. So if the beneficiary is not required to do anything, then he holds no liabilities. Let's take a look, before we go any further, at Black's Law 4th, and we're going to find real and personal effects. There we go. Let me blow this up. I'm having mouse problems again. Might need new batteries. The words real and personal effects. That's very plain and simple. Your real, physical, and personal, which is intangible. Personal means intangible. Real and personal effects will embrace the whole estate. Like I said, all those data elements that you gave for that personal record of the individual, that's an effect. It had an effect. This is your Fourth Amendment. You have the right to be secure in all of your persons, houses, papers, and effects. Very simple. Let's go back to estate. The value of a personal estate is of particular relevance in two cases. So there's not a whole lot that it affects, just two cases. If the individual declares bankruptcy and if the individual dies. So the value of the personal estate is of particular relevance if the individual declares bankruptcy. Now, if I'm declared to be bankrupt in their system, do I have any assets that would note them that they can come and attack them? They don't even know anything's there. As far as their record says, there ain't nothing there. Except a house, an automobile, and the regular everyday living amenities that are required to sustain life reasonably and comparatively to the rest of the world. That means if you get internet access, so you can reach your upline and have access to the authority, the principal, then you get it too. That's just internet communication. When an individual debtor declares bankruptcy, when an individual debtor declares bankruptcy, so you have to admit that you're a debtor in order to file bankruptcy. So under Title 15 bankruptcy, it's an ancillary cross-border case where you're going to make a claim that you're not a debtor, but you're in fact a creditor, and that the country, the nation, has to give you credit for all the data elements of which they base their values on that you gave them first, to then turn around and name you as trustee and then never compensated you for that position. Their estate is assessed to determine which of their debts they can be reasonably expected to pay. Now, if the obligation or other security, as defined by 18 U.S.C. 8, is that of the United States, then who is obligated on those debts? Who is the debtor? It tells us who the debtor is in 9-307 of the Uniform Commercial Code. It says the United States, and it gives you the location. It doesn't give them an address. It gives them a location. The location of the United States is in Washington, D.C. So why are they telling me the location of the United States is in Washington, D.C., and then demanding that I give them an address? Something's not parallel there, is there? I see Goldsmith smiling on that one. It's ridiculous, isn't it? They want to use their terms for them and apply them to us and not recognize the terms that we're using while they use them in their codes.
Exactly.
And they're calling us the sovereign citizens. So let's continue on. It says bankruptcy proceedings involve the same rigorous legal assessment of an estate that also occurs upon an individual's death. So it sounds like they're going to evaluate the actual value that they can be compensated for making a transfer. So if you go in and you help them realize you're actually the creditor, then there's no debt to assess except theirs. Oops. Sounds like you flipped the tables on it, and now you're going to walk on water. See, that's the concept of walking on water, is rigorously having faith in that you know what you're doing, and not to step into water when you don't know how to swim. You can't listen to somebody else tell you this is how you swim and all of a sudden think that you learned how to swim. You have to have a knowing and experience. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, folks. Estates are most relevant upon the death of an individual. Then why are they making it so relevant in their daily transactions and robbing you through probated estate actions? Estate planning is the act of managing the division and inheritance of your personal estate, and arguably represents the most important financial planning of an individual's life. And yet nobody teaches us about this anywhere in school. And I never had anybody come up to me and offer to teach me out of it, or teach me of it out of school either. It's important to keep in mind that every country has specific rules about passing on wealth, the allowed amounts, and the approved estate planning trusts. Again, that's when you're considering debt. All glory goes to him, and I give freely that which was given freely. It's not my property, it's his. I'm his. And I don't know who the fuck you are when you come at me making false accusations that I owe you a motherfucking thing. Generally, an individual draws up a will. Go ahead.
Just the thought I had, brother, is so the paperwork that they call real estate is basically paperwork they're trying to administer private estate through public records. Am I correct?
Yep. And that's because you gave them the data elements and they have a job to keep track of them now. That's what you're paying for them to administrate the estate. And nobody's taught you this.
Right.
So basically, this is where they call the mortgaging of the estate, where they're trying to say
Exactly.
that as they're mortgaging the estate, you are a decedent, and now they have to do administrative processes. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And that probated estate and that mortgage is relative to the address. I said earlier, when they do a foreclosure on a home, they're not foreclosing on the home.
So the
They're
paperwork.
foreclosing on the address. It's the Postal Service that has the real estate investment trust under which they operate.
So basically, that is the postal unit that they're doing a foreclosure on, basically.
Absolutely. The contract postal unit, and you use that address formation all the time, and you put it on these envelopes as the agent with the street name security that is securitized by a bonding number, which is the number attached to the street name security that is securitized by the municipality that created it, and it is securitized with the Postal Service because it's them that gave it that number. Then,
Whoever came up with all this is smart.
absolutely, that's what I said about the English language too. The more I realize how this works, the more I realize how beautiful it really is.
And they're not really out of line with what they're doing.
No.
No, not
I mean-
based on the presumption. No.
Shit. Wow.
So that's why I urge everybody to start learning this stuff, because once you learn it, you can help them discern what they're doing. We've got to stop letting them get away with just doing their job. There's something greater. There's a much greater aspect to their job as a public servant, and that is the trust. And even greater than the real estate investment trust by the Postal Service is the trust in God. In God we trust, that they use on their financial instruments. Go ahead,
That's the only thing that's brought me remedy. I'll be honest with you, because every single person that I've dealt with, whether it's with documents, it's like I'm hitting a brick wall. But when I hit him, I had a cop pull me over just for the hell of it, and license registration, the whole questions. And I said, "Can I help you? I saw your emergency flashers on. What can I do to assist you?" And he was really defensive. And he wanted my name. And I said, "Hey, I did what you. I'm your brother. Well, what gives you authority to pull me over with no reason?" And he said, "Well, I have authority. I have a badge." And he's going on and on. I said, "Well, isn't your authority the same as mine, God? And that's what gives me authority." And the guy let me go because he didn't have any answers. It's like, what are you going to do? Stand against that? You know, it's like,
Absolutely.
I'm calling you my brother. I'm saying that God loves us both. And what's up?
You
And
know,
he was floored. But that's
you
the only
know,
thing that's really helped me.
that's
Everything else is like the paperwork. I'm lost.
yeah. See, that's the premise that I'm using on this trespass here today. Is that the place that's trying to trespass me is literally called Waterloo Christian Schools. Now, I've been walking across back and forth that parking lot for a number of years, going back and forth to the store and other places, especially the bus stop that's right there on their corner. And I've never had not one single interaction, not one conversation with any of the kids, none of the teachers, none of the faculty, nothing. Not on Wednesday nights when they hold services, not on Saturday nights when they hold services, not on Sundays, nothing. And now, a few years into it, some guy comes walking up to me today on my way back from the store and confronts me and asks me, do you work here? No. Do you have any children at school? I said, no. He says, well, you can't come on our property. Now, the one thing I want to point out, the same thing with during this COVID bullshit, and the guy at the local store was wearing a mask, and he had his nice little white collar with his black jacket on as a father of the local Catholic church. And I asked him, can I ask you a question? He says, sure. I said, you're familiar with the Bible, right? Well, of course. So you're familiar with Genesis 2:7 that says, God formed man of the dust of the ground, and when he breathed the breath of life into his nostrils, man became a living soul. He says, yeah. I did that mask on your face, you ought to be ashamed. And just walked away. And that's the same thing here. These cocksuckers, and I am not ashamed at all calling them cocksuckers. And I'm sorry, Robert, I know your point on that, and I appreciate it. But these cocksuckers want to sit there and profess West Waterloo Christian schools and say that they don't allow me to walk on their parking lot that is on top of God's land. How fucking dare you?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's sickening.
And
How
that's
about you,
once they
Goldsmith?
realize.
I mean, anybody,
Well-
what have you guys came up with? Anything like,
Well, Iman wants to
curious.
speak real quick. Iman wants to speak. What you got,
I
sister?
can really hear her.
I was just saying that in actuality, all paper records are considered persons to be administrated, where if you're the people, you're a living soul, and the only one that could administrate you is the Most High, the Creator God.
Right. Exactly. And on that point, every document that has that name on it, 2 signatures. If you put yours on there first, and they get their grubby hands on it and put their signature on it second, guess what? That's the same presumption that you're the trustee. You signed it, said, I agree to these conditions, and then they signed it to qualify it as valid. Oops.
But Keith, isn't that what they do when they put an X, right? Where they want you to have a signature? They're saying, well, I'm going to give you the authority to sign after mine. So wouldn't that be considered 2 signatures as well?
If you can place any mark, let me look it up. I'll pull it up for you. And it's UCC 3-401. And it says,
Isn't that getting like the last back page, bottom? Go ahead. I'm talking.
a signature, and it goes to the signature. It says a person is not liable on an instrument unless the person signed the instrument or the person is represented by an agent or representative who signed the instrument and the signature is binding on the represented person under Section 3-402. A signature may be made manually or by means of a device or machine and by the use of any name, including a trade or assumed name, or by a word, mark, or symbol, executed or adopted by a person with present intention to authenticate a writing. So, again, if you don't comprehend the terms and conditions on that paper and you signed it, what you did was authenticate it as valid. And then the next person to sign on it says, okay, he said it's valid, it's his name on it, and that paper says he's obligated, so there you go.
As creator, you have the most authority over all. If it's your document, your personal document.
Yep.
As creator.
Yep.
The creative being, yeah.
Yep.
I concur 100%.
So then it is you would be the authenticator by using any symbol or mark or signature. Am I correct?
Yep. And
Yes.
so when you see that X on the paper, let me pull something else up.
Yeah, scratch that.
It can be anything that you want. anything that gives of you that you're the creator.
Yeah, that X, I always scratch that X out when they want that signature.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. I'm going to show you something
But
else.
it can be your ex.
I'm going to show you something else.
The creative being. The one with God. I wish I knew the Bible better. I say that and I don't read it. Just because there's a lot of cool sayings in it. But I think with intent, not intent, not hidden.
Okay. This is the Hebrew alphabet, right? You see what's on that screen, guys? Tet. T-E-T, tet. That is an X with a circle around it.
You're not sharing your screen.
Yeah, it's not sharing your screen.
Oh, there
There you
we
go.
go. Let me get back to it here. Okay. You see that X with a circle around it? That's tet, right? T-E-T. Now, T-E-T in Hebrew means good. General goodness represents general goodness. So why not just circle it? Does that not make sense? If they put an X on there already and you circle it, that's my mark. But if you don't, on the other side, don't understand, I'm referring back to the original language, Hebrew, God's word. And that means good. I am a good man, not a person. Understand language and how it works, where it comes from, and you will be amazed at how you will be able to express the trust of God. Every word of God is pure, for it is a shield unto he who put their trust in God. That's the express trust that's already there.
Like with your language, with your dictionary. I'm talking about you, Keith. On your website, you have your own. A means this, and B and C. So,
Yeah.
as a creator, you can use your language with dictionary terms with that document, and it makes it just as binding.
So you guys want to see what Robert's talking? So you guys want to see what Robert's talking about? Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I mean, am I correct? I'm asking that question because I would think it, with all intent, it would be out of it. It would be exposed to everybody. So it holds more power than anything.
Absolutely.
I tried reading something. I tried converting it. It's tough.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know how you came up with it, but it's pretty good.
So we go down to the bottom of the page, and guess what? There's the codex. It tells you what each letter means. And look at this. Patent. I use the cross specifically. It means more than the world to me. As
and it ties in your sigil up here.
I bear my cross patently because it is observable in my actions and my words that I am a child of God, and you will know who I am, what I am. I will not let that fail. When you see me walking across a parking lot, you're supposed to recognize me as an image and likeness of God. And when you fail to do that and make an accusation that I don't belong on that property because you have a fear that I might hurt one of your children, and even though you don't know me, that is fear-mongering, and that does not say anything about my intent. And when you turn around and call the local police and say that I have an issue with you, when you're the one that confronted me, you are going to be made a fool. I'm not playing games anymore, people. I refuse to play that language game anymore. I refuse to play the fear-mongering. My life is a sacrifice. And like I've said many times, I don't give a fuck.
Being able to continue that when it escalates, when the cops get called in, and when other people surround, being able to maintain composure and speak with clarity becomes very challenging at times.
Oh, it
And
does.
and that's where the education with law enforcement, with these people that are in authority, the authors, the authority, you know,
I
they
just find it easier to ask them the questions and let them realize
yes,
that none of this stuff makes sense. When, you know,
Yeah.
instead of getting an attitude with them, you just ask them simple questions when you know what you're talking about and let them try to figure out this mess and the BS that they're trying to explain to you. It's like, it doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
that's a great
And I just
idea.
look and laugh at them like, okay.
Well, and see that's and that.
Has that worked for you? I mean, do you do that? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
I had actually this morning I had an interesting. I went to the movies last night and I lost my wallet, and so I went to the DMV this morning to try and get a new ID and driver's license issued. And
I'll
of
be
course,
right back. Go ahead and hold the floor. I'll be right back. I got to take a bathroom.
they wanted me to fill out the application on their computers because everything is digital now, and I asked them if there is any way I can fill out the application by hand on paperwork. Of course, they said no. And so I asked to speak with the manager. And of course, he said, no, this is the way we do it now. There's no way you can fill it out by hand. So I said, okay, well, how do I qualify my signature on the application? She said, well, the application doesn't ask for a signature. So I said, how do you guys verify the information that I'm putting on there is for me? How do I authenticate the information on the application? She said, well, we'll issue a receipt once we receive your application. I said, okay, well, if you're going to issue a receipt, that means I have to deposit something to you guys.
This new
And she,
terminology, issue a receipt. So they're opening up a line of credit with you.
right,
If they're issuing you a receipt, they're opening a line
right,
of credit direct to
exactly,
your account.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly,
not a good position to be in.
and that
e-
receipt is known as a cash item.
exactly.
Yeah, isn't that a trip? So yeah, I see. I always need an example. Thank you.
Right.
What do you got?
So I asked her if I can add a line to the application to qualify my signature. She had no idea what that was. So I had to explain that to her. And I said, I'm just trying to receive the securities back that I'm going to issue to you guys. That
Well,
blew her
Exactly.
yeah,
mind.
you're not accepting the receipt. You're
Right.
you're the creditors. Yeah, that's what you were talking about earlier, Keith.
Yeah, that's
It's
that Article
what was
38
the
in the
what
labor
happened?
code.
Why?
Uh,
Did she end up? What was the outcome?
the outcome was I had to play their game. I just basically was trying to educate her on how the fact that she said that I wouldn't have to sign anything, and I was wondering how can I give you information, true information, without a signature to authenticate the information, and how can I get? And she said, well, we'll once you check the box when you put in all your information and all your data elements, it's we'll just take it as is, and I asked her, I'm like, okay, so you can put in my information and would that be valid? I just asked a lot of questions and I let her talk herself into a hole. And the outcome was I didn't get what I wanted to qualify my signature, but I just let her realize that
There's a reason
the
for
system doesn't
everything.
make any sense.
There's a reason for everything. You don't want to get the driver's license and stuff. We won't go into that.
Yeah, yeah, that's
But that's
well,
why it didn't work out for you. You didn't get what you wanted because it wasn't supposed to work out for you. Getting that license, find another
Right.
way, another avenue around it.
Well, yeah. Even with yeah, of course, right. But even in having interactions with the cops, I don't like
Yeah.
to give them a hassle. I know how to qualify everything and get it all on the back end, and I
yeah,
just
and
like
that
to teach while instead of making a confrontation because
right.
because
Yes.
they've been doing their job however many years and they think they know everything. So I just try to break it down to them to show them there's some things you might be missing.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, brother. We need more people like you. Go ahead, sister.
Definitely.
Iman?
Oh, as you were talking about the document, brother, and they were saying you can fill in your signature within a box. At one time, I was told, or I read somewhere where they said when you put a signature within a box, it's like a burial. It becomes invisible. Is that not so?
It's the four corners rule.
Right.
Brackets.
It's not it it's not included. It's not seen as being included in the document itself, and just rather as a notation to make attention, to draw attention. But it's not actually part of the document.
Right. That's what I learned. It's not really part of the document. So in a lot of these application sense, if you notice in the formation of them, they have everything is put within a box, basically.
Yep. Look at the passport application. Each page, the whole page is in a box.
Look at
The
a
whole
courtroom.
page.
The courtroom's in a
Yep.
box. Everything.
So we're gonna continue on and finish up with this here real quick. But before we do, Kay put down. Did you know that a checkbook's black line, signature line, is not a signature line? It is microprint, and on that check in the microprint it says authorized representative. So yep. So let's continue on with this. It says generally, an individual draws up a will that explains the testator's intentions for the distribution of their estate upon their death. A person who receives assets through inheritance is called a beneficiary. We are all beneficiaries of the ecclesiastical trust wherein he granted us the land, air, and water to give us existence in life. How estates are managed. In almost all cases, estates are divided among members of the deceased family. This passage of wealth from one generation of a family to the next has a tendency to entrench income in certain social classes or families. Inheritance accounts for a massive proportion of total wealth in the United States and around the world, and is in part responsible for persistent income inequality. Though there are, of course, many other factors. But I don't need income inequality or equality. That income is based on gluttony, greed. If you are going to use this commercial system to make a profit, then you must understand that that profit is made based upon the loss of another man. And this is why he is no respecter of persons. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for to love one another is to fulfill the law. So why are we dealing with a debtor institution knowing that? All glory goes to God, and it is a matter of spiritual credit. The merits of your activities in daily life. Are they spiritual or personal? Partially, as a response to the stagnation of wealth movement as a result of inheritance, most governments require those in line for inheritance to pay an inheritance tax on the estate. This tax can be very large, sometimes requiring the beneficiary to sell some of the inherited assets to pay the tax bill. And again, like we saw earlier, that would be based upon the monetary value based on income. Important in the U.S., if the majority of an estate is left to a spouse or a charity, the tax is generally lifted. It is generally advisable for both the individual drafting the will and the beneficiaries of an estate to employ the services of estate attorneys. Inheritance taxes are notorious for their complexity and exorbitance, and the use of an attorney helps ensure that your inheritance taxes are paid correctly. So if you pass your benefits, If you pass your estate on to your spouse, there's no inheritance tax. So it only goes to when you pass it on to a beneficiary other than a spouse, that they need to probate an estate to make sure that all creditors are paid. And that's the only reason they probate it. So that if there is somebody that is owed a debt in this debt system, then they can take the assets and value and make an evaluation, assess them for that payment, and draw that money out. That's the only reason.
Yeah, in order for that to happen, a benefactor within the trust has to complain, because it just doesn't, it's not exposed any other way. So it
Correct.
has to be, it usually happens, let's talk realistic, with a jealous benefactor. Oh, well, she's getting more than me, I'm going to bitch. It opens up that gateway.
Yep.
So yeah, it's as long as it's not exposed and you're doing on it, you're being forthright. These problems should never come up. It should never be part of a trust. Never.
Right. And when we think about the irrevocable trust, and how they say that it's irrevocable and can't be changed, there is one instance where it can be changed, and that's by the beneficiary or all beneficiaries in order to settle the matters. And the only reason that would be done, right, and the only reason that would be done is if the beneficiary was being violated and not receiving the benefit that they're supposed to. So a beneficiary can settle the trust and can change that irrevocable trust for his benefit if it's not benefiting him.
It can dissolve it. It dissolves at that point.
Because because of the probate situation, if they take it over and probate and then violate the trust, then the beneficiary has the right to settle that trust himself, and that is the collapse of the trust, just like a probate situation. Once the probate is done, now it becomes an irrevocable trust, but it's only an irrevocable trust until that property is then transferred to the beneficiary. And that's a matter of probating it, that period of probate. That's the only period.
It's the creator.
Right,
Once
the settler.
The creator, it's dissolved, null and void. Yeah, you dissolve everything and pay off everybody.
Yep.
What a waste, But anyway, it gets into a whole spiritual thing.
So Keith, is that controversy where the beneficiary, any controversy that exists, the beneficiary can make changes, modify, or alter to collapse the trust?
To settle the trust, which automatically collapses the trust. Once the trust is settled, all the debts are cleared and everything, and that's a settlement.
It brings in a new fiduciary is what it does. It involves the courts. It goes commercial, right? Because the fiduciary has to be an intermediary.
Right, in probate. Yeah. But once the probate is settled, then it collapses the trust. Now the beneficiary takes the property he received and puts it in his own revocable trust.
Right. If there's any property left, because they're going to drain the fuck out of that trust. The courts are going to do it.
Correct.
So I've been there. I've seen this firsthand, and it's a terrible thing. Not because I didn't get anything, because of what it tore apart. It tore apart. It tore apart a lot of things. But it was because we went against the creator of the trust, the creator, God.
Right. Because then probate, the beneficiary becomes the settler. Once the trust goes into probate,
he becomes the settled one individual. Whoever bitched, he's going to be taken care of, but that's it. What does he do with that?
In a court of probate, according to Scott versus McNeil, and this is on congressional record, Scott versus McNeil, the court of probate has no jurisdiction over the estate of a person who is in fact alive. None.
Right.
So all you got to do is say, hey, and a lot of people will say, well, they know you're living. Well, yeah, but it's the express trust of a living will. The living word of the living. I bring the living word of the living God in your now time right here. I'm not using your Babylonian text. I'm not using your legalese. I understand the difference between Keith Little as it grammatically is expressed without any hyphens or anything as the legal name. I don't use
Let's
the
say
legal
I'm a
name.
benefactor. Let's say I'm a benefactor in your trust, and I come against your trust, against you, the creator. I come against you. The only way I can is direct, which I should, through notifying you, right before you. And if I don't find remedy within that, I must seek outside you, and that involves the courts. When that happens, you are no longer seen in your creative mind. You're seen
Right.
in the court's eye, their mind.
Right.
You can stand on any ground you want, but
Right.
because that benefactor went in there, you got 2-on-1 now,
Now he's in
and
personal
it is
capacity.
that.
Right.
So that's why they usually will take, and you stand alone, and the courts will dissolve it. The benefactor can have whatever the fuck he wants to do with his new money, but you being alive, let's say, like we are right now, you stand with all that you are able to hold on to through your beliefs, through your love, your logic, through you, the creative being. So it's an impassibility,
Well, yeah, and
to
that's
do.
why I say the only way you can intercourse with another man in commerce is you have to present yourself in person. There is no other way.
You become public. It's fucked.
Yep.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. That's
stay
all
in the
they see.
private, and that's why being the creator of that trust, you do things fucking in honor, man, and you hire good fucking you basically are looking at trustees. Yes, I can be my own, but if I get fucked up, hurt, I'm gonna want somebody that's good that I can trust, because and we got to have people that are going to benefit from what we leave, what our record is. We got to have good benefactors that can carry this on, because if we have one breach in that duty, all these words don't mean anything, not to me. What the spirit of our creative being is what matters.
Yep.
So it
Coin your
gets
words or
deep.
purse. Yeah, coin your words or purse your lips. And I'm going to finish
Oh
up here real
fuck,
quick with this last
yeah,
statement.
I apologize. I start going off.
No, you're fine. I just want to. This is the last statement I'm going to read, and that'll be the end for tonight's stream. We can have any kind of discussion here, but just the last sentence here says, on the drafting end, several measures can be taken to minimize the amount of tax one's beneficiary will have to pay. For example, setting up trusts. Again, like I said at the beginning, we have to get over these gurus that are trying to teach us to hand that trust over to a public servant. That is not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to create your private trust, establish a trustee in private, and give those public officials notice. The
Hmm.
first duty in law is legal notice. And that legal notice is a living will with a certificate of trust. And here's a bonding instrument to satisfy any claims against it. And of course, since I don't have a public identification, here's my identity document along with that with 3 witnesses, notarized by a notary.
Exactly.
What are you
Exactly.
using right now for your ID? I mean, I'm asking this question for one because Goldsmith was saying that you're wanting to get driver's license or an ID, something like that. Correct?
Nope, I'm not.
So no, I'm asking, what are you using for? I mean, how's that working for you
Oh,
with
he's
that?
talking to you, Goldsmith. Yeah, he's talking to you. What do you
I'm
use
talking to
for
both
ID?
of you. I'm talking to both
Okay.
of you because he's trying to get one, and you don't use one. So
Well, I use my ID, and using my ID, I just usually on all my documents, I express the trust. I express my intent on creating a trust on every signature, anytime I'm signing anything. That's why we went back and forth, because I wanted to know, how can I express this trust?
I can't really see that, but so you created your own.
This this bicycle driver's license, as funny as it seems, is just as valid as any state ID.
Oh yeah. So maybe you don't want to go. I'm just trying to give you a different way. Maybe look at a different avenue where you don't take on that driver's license or that identification.
Right, and it's a
Goldsmith.
matter of Yeah, it's a matter of Homeland Security redress. Like I said, it's a matter of redressing the address. Any ID you have, they require you to give the legal name and an address. That's the
And it
mortgage.
opens
Like
your
I said,
bond up.
what is a mortgage? It's a death gauge. So that ID is literally the death gauge. It's the mortgage. And like I said, when they do a foreclosure, they're foreclosing on the address.
It's a
Right.
bond.
That is what I'm still learning on is not using the ID and not using that name and using a number to express that person.
Right.
And
Yep.
Not
And
having
one
that
has
number.
well well one has to realize that that driver's license is really a business license to do business and commerce.
correct,
It's a
Yep.
bond
correct.
certificate.
Absolutely. And the more we find out, like I mentioned, the Homeland Security redress, that's part of the process in providing diplomatic papers as private credentials. You know, like we spoke earlier, the carnet. The carnet is an international customs bond. Well, goodness gracious, that seems like that birth certificate should operate as an international customs bond. It
It
is an
does.
it is an international document. So why
Yeah.
not issue it to the Postal Service, the one I believe is supposed to hold that title, as a
Well, you don't
letter?
want to issue it, Keith. You do not want to issue it.
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Understand. You issue it as a private issuer for private placement, for private credit, and not commercial contracting. So that anything that comes across that ledger, as if though it's a contract, will throw that that general ledger out of balance. And like I
It's a
said, I believe
bond.
right. I believe the Postal Service is supposed to hold that title because they're the ones that are responsible for balancing the general ledger. That alone tells me it's the Postal Service and the Postal Regulatory Commission that is the government of this United States of America.
Right. I agree 100%. The only thing that I have reserve with is our birth certificate is a bond. Anytime we issue a bond or we open that bond to somebody, it is us opening that bond. It's giving them access to it in case there's harm to them.
Yes,
So
and
if
then
we
they
don't
can.
issue it and we stand in honor because it's up to them. They have to prove it gets into that trust. We do not issue the bonds. We stand in full credit of with our armor and all the things that you say, but without issuance of the bond. Let them presume whatever the fuck they want. I'm
Right.
not going to give them a copy of any bond,
And see,
anything.
no, what my intent is to go forth with that birth certificate bond and give it as a private issue for private placement with the executive, who is allowed to incorporate that bond with the surety bond if anything comes against me versus somebody that comes against me. So if these officers, like they're covered under that surety bond, I've got a bond with them too. Now, if it goes to the surety bond company and they do their investigation and find out the officer is wrong, then they pay me out of the surety bond. If they find out I'm wrong, the officers in the city or whoever gets paid out of the bond. See, they're going after the estate, what we saw here, not the man.
Okay, but each individual that has the ability to come against you, as you call it, any of them that are engaged in commerce, let's call it what it is, in commerce, they can do harm against you. If they can overstep their bounds like that, they must have their own bond. Whether it's a blanket umbrella bond, they have their own. You don't give them your bond and go, oh, you know what? I'm
No,
going to open it up in case I get harmed, you get harmed. You keep your bond.
no,
Yeah.
It's already
Yeah. You have
implied through the trust.
it's a
Yes, I
it's a
do this. I do
it's a
this. I live this way.
it's
I
a
have
Robert, it's a collateral document.
right.
It has to have a collateralization.
that you give credit to.
Right.
That's what I did.
That's why I say you issue
You
it to
got
the
to give the value
executive.
to it. Yeah.
Right.
So you know, like,
You issue it to the executive and let them know It's a private issue, private placement for any value they need under
Right.
the obligation or other security of the United States for any value they want to come after.
But
And that's what they do.
they
That's the
shouldn't
same
be
thing they
coming
do.
after you. They shouldn't
That's
be
what they
coming
do.
after that. They can't. If you come after, then what was before? The one that created. It's a big.
Well, see,
This is how I
understand,
express
Robert.
my shit, and
Understand, Robert.
I draw from their money. Everything I do is from them.
Right, but
Everything. I give full.
just like that license, that driver's license or
I don't
ID,
have
that's
one.
listen, just like that driver's license or ID, that's a security instrument.
Right.
As a holder, I both have the right to enforce, but I also have the obligation. So if I place that in the hand of the head of the agency, which is the executive, the mayor, he is the holder, and now he is obligated for both me and his surety bond. Now it's collateralized. I know very well what I'm talking about, brother.
So do I. The driver's license is an insurance policy. Basically, it's worth, at least when I first got mine at 16, it was worth $1,700,000 and something bucks. And it was an insurance policy. You could use it for tickets, all kinds of shit. We weren't taught that. Nevertheless, it's an insurance policy. I don't have one anymore. I got rid of all that shit. I use my birth certificate basically for that. I don't give it to anybody. I use it. It's already implied through my documentation. It's implied with everybody. That is my intent. I don't need to give them shit.
Well, no, you don't. But the thing is, again, like I said, it's a collateralization. And what the best term I can use to compare this is he's a respecter of no persons, right? So we use a comparison is what we've been taught. Strip the word down. I see 4 words in one. Com, which is Latin, which means with. PAR, which is a par, an average. And then I, son. Ye shall do greater things than I. I'm not average. You can't compare me with that document. You can compare this document with that document, but you can't compare me with that document. I am not the comparison. The other document is.
It depends on what document you're talking about. There's only one document that I know.
The bond for bond. See, the war is between it's the battle of the forms.
I don't
you let
have
the forms.
war.
I know they do. I know they do. In order to receive equity, you must first come with equity. So if you come with the equitable measure that if they do get in a war with you, they understand it's not a war with yourself, but with the bond.
Right.
And that's presumed already. It's known. It's known.
I know, but it's not recognized.
That are placed.
It's not recognized until it's expressed properly. Again, like I said, those instrumentalities are theirs, and if you claim it as yours, you are going to be held liable. That's the same thing. That's the same thing with the driver's license.
Give my bond. That's why I don't give my bond, and I don't show up to court.
I'm not giving them my bond. I'm getting a bond from them, and then giving it back.
It's private placement.
Exactly.
Right, giving it back to them. The same thing you would do with the Treasury. Pay to the Treasury for reissue of a new security or redemption.
Okay, so, where I think we have an impassibility right now is that I don't even ask for their bond unless they harm me. That's the only time I would ever ask for their bond. I don't want to carry their bond. I don't want to know about. It's already implied that they have one by the numbers they wear and by the titles they carry. Therefore, no, you must stand within the laws of whoever you're with, whoever your opponent is.
Right.
Well, so I better know their laws and their rules. So it's implied already. I don't ask them for it because I don't want that liability.
But again,
and that's what it becomes.
But again, Robert, it's an insurance policy, not a surety bond. And if you look at the
insurance policy.
But it's not a surety bond. You have to collateralize. You have to collateralize the surety bond, and understand the way this works. If you pass on, and there's no bond there, No matter how that estate gets administrated, it's all abandoned property. They will not find your benefactors, and that's end of story. All
On
property
mine,
goes
they
to the
will
state.
though. See, I
How? How? You don't
well,
have any.
it's
If
through
you don't
I
have,
have
if
all that.
you
I have a trust.
listen. If you haven't given them the proper legal notice,
They have notice. I gave them proper legal notice.
what's the legal notice?
On mine, I posted it because I went through the postal. Right there, you can post it through their rules and regulations. Post it for the intended time. I sent notice to everybody that was in the trust and a copy of it so they would know that they're the benefactor, that they're the trustee. They must know my intent. So they had I gave each of them a copy of it, and that was it. I didn't go to the recorder. I didn't record it. I just gave notice, certified notice to each one through. I didn't give a copy of my trust, but what you were saying earlier, the certification is a notification, and I gave everybody from the secretary on down, and I treated it like a business basically. And
Right,
so, with
but
that intent, that is my bond, that is my value, and that's what I live off of. I mean, I got a nice home, and I don't pay for any. I don't work. I don't collect money from anybody. I just express my will, and I do it as to you, my brother. I tell you the most, like you. I tell the most truth I know to help people, and I want them to know so much more than me. And in doing that, I have needs. I have food I need to eat. I have housing, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I want to go fishing for a month. Well, I draw that money from the birth certificate bond, but as a benefactor, and it opens that trust. My kids, they homeschool. My daughter, she homeschools. She has $7,000 a month for 2 children, and that's opening their trust, their bond, their birth certificate, and it's all in honor. And we're teaching them, our children, this, and so on. And I'm not disagreeing with you, brother. I love you. I love everybody
yeah, and
here.
I'm not disagreeing with you either. It's just that we've got
I
two
just
different
choose not
avenues.
to. I don't like drawing anybody's. I don't want their energy. I don't want their bond. I already know it's implied by the statements they make and by the badges they carry and by the titles they wear. So I already know that, and they know me. And
Well, and
you
I
know me, you
certainly,
should love me. I'm your brother,
yep, and
and she's my sister.
I certainly hope that works for you.
It
It's just
has
that I
been
have,
for many years.
and I just have a different perspective on it. So maybe we'll have to talk about that further because I really don't want to do anything I don't need. So it would
That's
take,
right. You
yeah, and
taught
that's
me a lot of this, Keith. You taught me so much of this.
well, and
I mean, like,
that's why I think we should get together sometime in a private meeting so I can gather up some more
hey,
information, get a better perspective of how you're seeing it, because I know
I
you
would
do.
like
I know
everybody
you do a
here,
lot of the things I've been talking about. So
all of us. I would like these my brother and sister right here to be on that meeting because I really listen. I don't know.
well,
Maybe I'm doing some shit that's wrong, and I could use, not even use. I could just become part of what you guys are doing, and I need
well, yeah,
help.
and that's the point here. Is the more of us that work together, it's like that two heads are better than one. You might find a solution that works. I might find a solution that works. Goldsmith might find a solution to work, and the more solutions we find that work, the more people will be attracted to associating with those kind of people. That's how we build our communities.
Yeah,
Success after success after success, that isn't a cookie cutter success. It's the
it's
ability to
almost
use,
impossible for it to be one. I
right.
found that out the hard way. I asked you when I first met you. I said, "Hey, help me, help me, help me." Remember? I was like,
Yeah.
"Come on, Keith, look, I'm taking my energy from you." All that bullshit. And you know what? I realized I came to this moment where I went, "Wow, you know what? This is an individual journey.
Yes.
There is no cookie cutter, man. I wish there was. I wish there was. Maybe that's why we're here. I don't know. If I was the all seen one, I think I would have not done this part of it. I don't think
Yep.
God, this was done by us, our own kind.
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely.
and
And that's
that
what
sucks, man. That's a hard pill to swallow for me. It
that's
truly
that
is.
paying. That's where we're at right now, is paying for our father's sins. The sin is not knowing. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. If you're not going to be a priest unto me, I have to deny you. If you're not going to teach your children, I must deny them as well. So,
Yeah, and that's hard. And how do you deny your children, even when they're doing wrong? It's So, yeah.
all right. Well,
Well,
with that,
I'll have that meeting whenever you would like to, and whenever
well,
I would like
um,
more people get a bunch involved because, yeah, I
on
really
some,
want to know. And I
on
wish. Oh my gosh, sister, how do you pronounce your name?
Iman.
Iman.
Iman. I want to
Yes.
do. I want to buy you a microphone or something for your computer so we can hear you. Because I even when I'm not online, I watch and I can't hear you, and your words are so powerful.
Well, brother, they are my device. It's not so much my, it's the device. And I know a lot of times they are
I want to get you another
instrumental.
device.
Okay,
So,
it's all in well. Just let me know what you desire me to do.
w- no, what we can talk after, we can talk now, but I want to buy you a mic, whatever you need to speak up in that with in this capacity. Um, Keith, help me out here.
Yeah, I watch you guys
Gold
all the
Stills,
time
help me out.
also, and she does
I want
she
to hear
does
you, and I can't,
have
and that
powerful
bothers
things
me.
to say.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. We interact.
can I buy you a microphone or whatever you need?
Yeah, we interact through email, and she comes up with some amazing information that helps me as well. And that's why I ask people to come up and help with this. I'm not a know-it-all. It might seem like I know a lot,
Oh, but you
but
have
I've
a
done a lot of
brain.
research. But I haven't researched everything, and I need other people's help. Because if you truly think that I'm putting this together in form and being accurate about it, I need that help to make sure that, like I said, it's not a cookie cutter process, but it is most certainly truthful.
It's
And that's what I'm
100%
looking for.
correct.
Yep.
It is. It is. We just have this impasse on giving and receiving, which is that's nothing.
Right.
Please, if that's the worst of our friggin' issues, then wow. let's grow a garden, whatever. But so Keith, you have my number. I want to buy her whatever she needs so I can hear her voice.
You heard that, Iman?
So let me know. Let's not go overboard.
I
No
did.
more than a million.
I I also input my email in there. So
Okay, well,
Yeah, her email is in the back.
okay. Then I will email you.
Awesome. Awesome. Appreciate that, brother. And this is what it's about, you know. If
Well, I
there's
want
a
to hear.
voice
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's a voice that needs to be heard, we need to help each other in any way we can. And that's why I say I need you guys up here, because that's my support. I got me a nice microphone, okay? And it's working pretty good. I got a nice headset and everything. Thank God to the contributions that have come in so far. And while we're on it, I want to remind everybody there is a PayPal link down there below for anybody who wants to share some of. Every little bit is appreciated, and it always helps. I could certainly need it or use it. And in the meantime, hit that like, share, and subscribe button, folks. And then with that, we're at the end of our stream. You guys got anything on the way out? Well, let's get with it.
No, man, good conversation, man. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys as always.
the only question I have, brother Keith, is how do you spell that word carnet so I can do my sourcing of information?
It's very simple. It's a carnet. Carnet. Think
Thank you.
about how. Think how ironic
Carnet.
that is. It's
To
a
be
carnet.
captured, to be netted.
Absolutely. They're
Yeah.
fishers of men as long as they're in some kind of vehicle.
Yeah. Man, I know. Even listening to my kids, I'm like, you guys, and they're like, Dad, enough. I'm like, no, listen to what you're saying. It's like you're
Yeah.
spelling each other. You're giving me your voodoo. I don't want your spells. All this. Oh
Yep.
man, it gets deep. How deep?
You
Gets
guys
where?
ready to go out?
Where are you going?
All right.
Anyway, thank you,
Well,
man. Everybody,
It's time
love
for
you all.
bed.
uh-oh. It's time for what? Time for ball?
Time for bed.
Oh, time for bed. Hey, I like that. You got a system that automatically reminds you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I need to start listening to her more often.
Was that your wife?
No, it's Alexa. It's Alexa. It's
Oh,
like,
oh man, I had to cancel that because I started asking all these weird questions. People are like, "Hey, Robert, you gotta ask it this, ask it that." So I started doing that. Oh my gosh, talk about rabbit holes. The answers that those come up with is unbelievable.
yeah, my new thing is getting what is it, Chat GPT to stop lying and tell the truth.
Yep. Now I don't know if it's any better than Chat GPT, but there's a new one out, you.com. And
You.com.
What's it called?
I'll
Yep.
try that one.
You.com. You.com. YOU.com.
Yeah, I messed
So anyway,
up. Yeah, good chatting with you guys, man.
you bet. I appreciate
Yeah.
all your support again, guys. May you be blessed in everything you do, and we see you again next time. And like I said yesterday, I'm gonna or the day before, I'm working on doing streams 3, 6, and 9, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, except of course on city council days or any county commissioner meeting days. And then of course that's Monday through Friday, and then Saturday I may or may not do videos. Sunday I'll make sure to do 9 o'clock. I'm gonna stick with that
You
9
know,
o'clock on Sunday.
you've attracted some knowledgeable followers, people. Because I listen, I may not come on board here, but I listen, and the people that key into your show, I'll call it your show, to you are they're educated, and so
Yes.
it's really I don't care if it says 1,000, 1,000,000, however many, but it's really educational, and people that are creators that I believe have change, they're making change or have the ability to, are tying into you, and you're tying into them. So we're all really connected, and that
Yep.
connection is so powerful. As
I
you were
hope
saying
so.
earlier, everybody
I
spoke about that.
Yeah, I hope so. And Tribe's one of the ones that I really wish you'd come up on panels sometimes, brother. We need your knowledge up here too. So we is book eaters. All right.
Yeah.
Well, with that, guys, we are
Hey
done.
man, he's sideways.
Yep.
Love
Yeah, I
you.
think he
Thank
dropped
you,
out.
Keith. Thank you very much.
You bet. Have a good night, brother Robert. And Sister Iman, you got anything on the way out?
No, all is well. Appreciate all the knowledge. We got to just keep rising together. That's all.
Yep.
Can you give her my phone number or my email, whatever, Keith? I don't know how to do all that. So, and I'm not gonna look hers up, can I just do it right here? Can I
Yeah,
give her
it's in
email?
it's in the back chat.
Okay.
Brother Keith,
Then I'll
you,
just
you
get it
can
from
just
that.
send me you can just send me an email. Since I already have yours, you could send me an email with his information.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Cool.
Just send me a quick email so I've got yours on tab again, Robert. I don't know exactly what it is offhand and whether I still
Yeah.
got it or
No,
not.
that's
It's been
fine.
a while since we've communicated. So just
Yeah.
you got my email in the details section down below. Go ahead and send me a quick email and I'll get it to her, and
Okay.
you guys can communicate.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. With that, folks, we are at the end of tonight's stream. And again, I appreciate all the support. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down below for anybody who wants to share some love. And like I said, every little bit is appreciated, and I could certainly use it. And of course, you always know my outro is I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. And that's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night.
Good night, brother.
All right. Bye now.